Hello, everybody. It's on, and it's a bonus episode. We're gonna get weird with our B show, and we're gonna tape 3 episodes in one night. Sit back and relax as we see some of the benefits and pitfalls of booking multiple episodes in one night with your top tier company and child company. It's a relatively low pressure situation, so let's get into it and enjoy. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very special episode. We have reached the day where we tape our B show, SWF Uprising, and we are going to be taping 3 shows in a row. I want to book this B show in a very specific way, so let's discuss that. I'm going to have this B show feature workers from my RIPW child company's roster. And the purpose of that is to take guys who are at the cusp of moving up and get them a little bit more national exposure. I've already gone through the roster and decided who I'm going to borrow from my child company in order to put these shows together. It's not going to exclusively be RIPW wrestlers. We're going to have a mix. Now, workers I definitely plan on featuring are my RIPW title holders. Now, I won't be able to actually have them defend their titles. I've done a little experimentation, and you can move a title between companies, but that automatically vacates the title in the new company. So doing that creates a weird situation where you'll have an additional title run each time you move the title and alter the champion. I guess one thing that could be done is going into the database and modifying the history, but that seems like too much work for what I'm doing right here. Now, I've already planned what I want to do for my actual shows, so I'm just going to go to the evening portion and let's get things booked up. Now, I'm not going to give anyone the night off. Really, you only give the night off to people who you want to be available for other shows. So I'm going to just keep everybody as working. On this night, the RIPW show is also happening live. So anyone I borrow from RIPW won't be able to be on that show. I've already decided it's a mix of, again, the champions won't be on the RIPW broadcast, but I'm not taking all of their stars or well-known workers. So no one gets the night off. Let's select tonight's venue. Now, the venue I want to use is in New England. There's a couple reasons for that. One, all the RIPW workers, or at least most of them, are located there already. Also, within the story of our company, we just had our Supreme TV broadcast in the Maritimes in Canada, so we're pretty close to New England already. And we're not expecting to have very many fans, although let's see if there's any locations or venues that have about 1,500 people. And Skid Row Club is just 1,000. Hiring cost is 1,000. And just some quick math tells me that using the larger capacity, even if we have the decreased attendance, will get me more profit overall, and it's going to be a better choice. Now, I actually don't think I'm going to make profit on this show, which I'm okay with. I'm willing to take that cost on in order to help gain popularity for the child company wrestlers. That way they can get promoted in the future. So let's select this venue, and I am sure. Locker room incidents. Let's see if there are any. Several people remark Rocky Golden have been hanging out with Franklin Fumier and that he's starting to have an influence. That actually reminds me that Franklin Fumier is actually going to be a commentator on this show. Let's go ahead and see the next one. Huey Cannonball and Jefferson Stardust are really getting along well backstage while they're tag team partners. So that's good. Good to see a tag team getting along. And that's it. Now I think with the pre-show, we're running 3 shows tonight. So each show we run, we go through this process, but I think there's only the potential for locker room incidents to happen. So let's see if that happens. We're going to address the locker room. I believe this is the only time we're able to do that. So we're going to meddle, as we always do, between Joe Sexy and Des Davids. Positive meddle, because that has the best chance of working out. Hopefully, eventually, that relationship is healed. I didn't pre-book anything for these shows because it's not necessary for B shows. Before I actually book this show, I'm going to go to the office, and I do want to change one thing, and that's the commentary for this show. In the Uprising TV, I'm going to replace Anna Garcia with Joanne Rodriguez. And I'm going to replace Dwayne Fry with Franklin Fumier, or Fumier. I don't know what it's supposed to be pronounced as, but I like Fumier. Now, this was my second A shows lineup, and they were terrible together, but the point is to get them a little bit of experience, maybe get their popularity increased, and maybe have them have more opportunities in the future. Now, my only concern is that for Joanne Rodriguez, in her profile, she is not contracted to wrestle on BTV or house shows. Now, she is not a wrestler for me. She is a former wrestler, so I guess that's why the option is there for her contract. But let's see if she'll be willing to be a commentator. If not, I'll just drop her off the commentary team for this show. Another important thing is, as I'm booking the match, I'm going to go ahead and borrow every single RIPW worker that I'm going to use for all 3 shows of the night. Once I borrow them, I have them for the entire night. So I'm just going to take everybody who I'm going to use throughout the night, even if I'm not using them on this first show. All right, I'm going to book this show 1 of 3 for tonight's booking. Okay, so we have our first show of the night booked. I don't have any pre-show matches because I do have 3 shows to get through tonight. Some general notes: all of the match aims here are regular right now. Because it's a B show, a lot of the product requirements don't apply. For example, having a storytelling match. So I didn't have to try to fit that in anywhere here. The matches and segments generally are quite short, and that's fine. I'm really not worried about ratings for this show. It's more about just getting some work in and getting exposure for some of the RIPW folks. There's actually not really anyone except for one worker from RIPW on this particular show, but that's okay with me. We are going to start with 2 main roster workers, Spencer Spade, who is a star. In fact, I think he's a major star at this point. And then Oliver Cobb, who's, I believe, well known. They're going to have a match, goes into a couple angles. At this point, the crowd might be hot. Now, I'm hoping it is just for this squash match between Scythe and a local worker. And then following that, we're going to have a women's match. And it's another squash match, essentially, where Demelza Wade is going to defeat an RIPW women's wrestler. Now, this may naturally make the crowd heat fall because the audience isn't going to care about either of these wrestlers, and the match probably isn't going to be very good. If we have a hot crowd going into this match, I am going to change the aim to be calm the crowd. I do think even if you have poor workers, if they're working a match with a specific match aim and it's placed well on the card, that can help hide the fact, ratings-wise, that the audience really doesn't care about the match. The intention is clear, right? So most likely this will be a calm the crowd match, unless we just stay simmering throughout this entire time. And for this Demelza Wade match, since Chrissy Angel is here part of the Big League Club stable, I'm going to add Demelza Wade as one of Chrissy Angel's managerial clients. We're going to see real quick how their chemistry works out. And if they work well together, or even if it's just neutral, I might just keep that for the rest of my Demelza Wade matches. After that, we have another squash match. Really, it's 3 in a row, but whatever. Again, I'm not really worried about that. In fact, now that I'm looking at this, I do think I'm going to make a change here. I'm going to take this Jungle Lord and Charger Siaki match, and I'm going to move it after the Demelza Wade match. So we'll have 2 main roster guys in a relatively short match. That way we break up the squash matches. After that, it's going to be Adam Smasher and another local worker squash match. That's going to lead into an angle between Scythe and Adam Smasher, and hopefully between this match and this angle, we have a hot crowd, or at least not an uninterested crowd, before our main event angle, etc. Now, another thing that I'm thinking here with moving this match, in case the crowd turns on us because of the women's match, I can take this and have it be a lift the crowd match before I have my squash match, which is very short and I just can't do anything except regular in order to, make the whole thing work. So I think we're in a good place. Yeah, it's time to start the show. Okay, so we didn't get off to the start we wanted to. The rating is only 54, and I don't care so much about the rating, but the crowd heat stayed at simmering. I think a big part of that is two things. Spencer Spade was off his game, and Oliver Cobb and Spencer Spade have poor chemistry. So there's really nothing I can do about that. It's actually nice to find out that they have poor chemistry in this situation than on a main TV show. So that's fine. We're going to go right into our next segment, which is an angle. And there we go. We got a pretty good rating with the angle, and we are hot and rising. That means we have a hot crowd for the next angle that's coming up, and then the match to follow. So Spencer Spade looked good. The angle got the crowd hotter. Basically, what happens in this angle is, as Spencer Spade celebrates his win, Robbie Wright runs in and attacks Oliver Cobb. After the attack, Wright tries to shake Spencer Spade's hand, and Spade turns to the crowd to see if he should. Wright takes a supreme stunner for his effort. So, I feel like, especially since the highest rating was the last part, Spencer Spade hitting Robbie Wright with his finishing move is what makes the crowd pop there. This angle was booked well overall. We're going to go right into the next segment, which is another angle. And that's another good 64 rating. I'm cool with that. The crowd is hot. Very nice. I'm going to return to the booking screen just to see where we are in the show. And great, we have a hot crowd for this squash match with Scythe. So I'm happy that we have a hot crowd going into this. Let's see how the crowd heat goes following the Scythe match. And then we'll decide what match aim we really want to have here. Right now I have it as regular, but I think if we drop down to simmering, I'm going to have them work the crowd. If it's a hot crowd still, I'm going to have them calm the crowd. So let's just see how this next match goes. All right, so we are at a hot crowd. It got a 59, and that's good. It's kind of funny. This is a local worker, and he has good chemistry with Scythe. That's not going to be enough for him to get hired by SWF, but we did have a successful match here. Scythe looked good in his dominating performance, and that's great. Now, I'm going to go return to the booking screen because, like I said, since this is a hot crowd, I'm going to make this match, even though it's definitely a squash match and there's going to be a dominate note for Demelza Wade, I'm going to have this be a calm the crowd angle, right? We want to calm the crowd down. The workers will slow down in the ring to achieve this. It's useful to stop the audience from burning itself out in back-to-back exciting matches, and also I just don't want to burn the crowd out overall. I know this is a short match to be doing this, and I don't necessarily care how the rating goes. I think the point here is that if the intention is to calm the crowd, hopefully that keeps the crowd at a simmering level and not lower than that. So let's go ahead and just continue the show. We had a terrible rating. We're simmering down. So to me, that says that the crowd is still simmering, right? Oh, all right. So that experiment with Demelza Wade and Chrissy Angel did not work out. They have terrible chemistry. So we're going to remove Demelza Wade as one of Chrissy Angel's clients. The crowd were turned off by having a match outside of the pre-show between workers they don't have an investment in. Yeah, sure, that makes sense. And as planned, this match brought the fans down a little. So again, it being planned that way, I think helps, maybe not necessarily with the rating, but the crowd hasn't completely turned on us. Not sure if we kept it regular how that would have gone, but my assumption is that it went better than it would have otherwise. So now that we are simmering down, we're going to keep this as regular and hope that they, build up the crowd a little bit. Jungle Lord is recognizable, and Charger Siaki is recognizable. So I think that's acceptable for a regular match aim here. Let's see how the actual match goes. All right, we're still simmering, and that's okay. Again, I just don't want the crowd to turn on me, right? And we got a 54 rating. Ratings aren't really something that matters to me for this show, so we're just going to move on to the next segment. And we got a pretty good rating, a 51. Smasher looked good in his dominating performance, and overall, things went well. Crowd is still simmering. Maybe this angle gets the crowd hotter because it features Adam Smasher and Scythe. And you know, the crowd didn't move into a hotter direction, but we did get a really good rating. 78 is good, and we actually gained heat on our storyline, which is kind of what I hoped I would. The storyline had pretty low heat after the last Supreme TV that we ran. And Adam Smasher looked good. That's a nice thing to see. Adam Smasher for this one was working the crowd, and Scythe was intimidation. We're just going to continue on and go right through to finish the show. Let's see the next segment. It is an angle where I had a promo for Mainstream Hernandez and Dominic D'Souza. Storyline actually lost heat here. Maybe they'll have a decent enough match, but we'll see. Crowd is simmering. That's not ideal for the main event, but I'm not too worried about it. Let's go on to the next segment. Oh, High Flying Hawaiian off his game again, I think. I just remember at the event he had a pre-show match that sparked a question at the media scrum where it was said that he was off his game. So I don't know. That's not great to see. Both storylines involved here lost heat. Wasn't a great match. Performances weren't great, but we still move on. Let's go to the last segment, which is an angle. And that got a 63. Deaver Arnold, who I think was just a non-speaking appearance, he underperformed. All right, what can you do about that? But Joey Morgan and Mainstream Hernandez looked good, so I like the sound of that. Let's go ahead and finish the show. This one got a 64 rating overall. Again, this isn't going to affect popularity really, and that's fine with me. I think for the most part, we did everything that we wanted to do in this show. Let's finish it up. And that means we go right into our next show. And let's see if there are any additional locker room incidents here. We do have one. Scythe has been talking to Moriarty Schnell a lot. Okay, they basically just met each other, but it looks like he has some influence. That's good, and Moriarty has a needy personality and currently has normal morale. Now, one thing I think I'm going to mention here, just because this is an RIPW worker, I borrowed all of my workers up front during booking of the first show, and now we are seeing locker room incidents between the first and the second show between a worker who basically wasn't in the locker room during the first portion. So if you are going to book multiple shows in a night, either hiring local workers or your child company, you want to get all of those workers into the locker room up front. That way you can maybe get some of these positive locker room incidents. I guess it could go the other way if there's negative ones, but you won't even have the opportunity if the workers aren't in the locker room before the show. So let's move on and see if there's any more. Nope. Phase complete. And now it's time to go book the next show. There is only one opportunity to address the locker room. All right, I'm going to book this second show of the night. And as I am booking this second show, I just remembered to go into Chrissy Angel's managerial clients and remove Demelza Wade. I am going to use Demelza Wade again in this show, so I don't want the poor chemistry to affect anything. I will say that one reason that I am leaning into Demelza Wade, even though she's considered unimportant, has cooled momentum, etc., is she has a legendary gimmick, and she is a decent-ish worker. I mean, I kind of got pushed into putting her on the main roster because she didn't want to work in the child company, but I think building the original or initial women's division around her can work. So I'm pushing forward and pushing her. Now, in this women's match, Fuyuko Higa is the RIPW Women's Champion, but if we go into the roster, she doesn't have a gimmick. She hails from Japan, and I don't know if I took her from another company, but a lot of the Japanese touring companies, especially in the Cornellverse, they don't have gimmicks. So I do want to create a gimmick for Miss Higa. Now, if we look at her attributes, she's an amazing heel, which she is a heel. She has some troubling traits here, but in terms of gimmicks, just her look makes her seem like she might play mysterious occult well, but I think I'm going to use a legitimate gimmick because she is a champion in our child company. So I think introducing her to the main roster makes sense as a legitimate contender, threat, etc. And because it's in her background description, I think I'll just call the gimmick Miss Perfection. So let's go into gimmick details, prepare a gimmick change. We are going to choose legitimate, and Higa is particularly good at this type of gimmick. We're just going to keep everything right in the center, and Miss Perfection is the gimmick name. So let's confirm the gimmick change, and there we go. Gimmick will appear next time she is on screen. I chose Ed James as Hellian's opponent for this match because he has the giving performer attribute. So hopefully he makes Hellion look good. All right, so our second show of the night is completely booked, and here's how I think it's going to go. We're going to get started with an in-ring promo. Now, these are two RIPW workers. Warwick Good is the world champion there. Fro Shore just won their March to Victory tournament, so they're two of the top RIPW workers and have a lot of potential to be integrated into the main roster very shortly. I want to start the show with them having an angle, and essentially this is their opportunity to get the crowd on their side. It seems to me that for unimportant workers, it's a little bit more forgiving when they're in angles than matches. So I'm hoping that they get off to a good start. They both have pretty high charisma and mic skills. After that, they're going to have a match, total time 10 minutes, and then I'm going to have another angle where Rocky Golden makes an appearance. So that should get the crowd hot no matter what happens in the previous two segments. Then I'm going to have a squash match with Hellion and a quick angle with John Greed. This is just to get John Greed a little bit more time on TV because he is being integrated into a storyline over the next few weeks on my A show, Supreme TV. I expect the crowd to still be hot, so I'm going to, again, for the women's match, have a calm the crowd match aim. We'll see where the crowd heat actually is. If we're simmering, I'll change this to working the crowd. Then we'll have an angle and a match that features Angry Gilmore. Hopefully we at least stay simmering with these two segments. And then we have our main event. And the main event is actually relatively long match-wise. And that's because it's going to feature a significant storyline for the main storylines of the company. Also because it's going to be a storytelling match. You want to have at least 15 minutes of match time for a storytelling match. I think that it makes sense because it involves a storyline. Also because the B show is just light work for all of these wrestlers. With the storytelling match aim, I also have a slow build going on. So there you go. That's the main event. Should work in front of any crowd heat. So I think we're good to go and we're ready to start things off and see how this opening angle goes. Let's go ahead and check it out. And we still have a simmering crowd, which is fine, and segment rating is 53. I did have the angle to be improv, not scripted, and it looks like Fro Shore does well with that, which I kind of predicted or thought would happen, but I wasn't sure about Warwick Good, and he doesn't go off script so well. I mean, it does turn out to be a poor angle, which, hey, it is what it is. Let's go ahead and hit next segment and see how the match goes. And the match is better. I mean, the crowd really isn't there with the wrestling, and it's because these are two unimportant workers. When I say unimportant, I think really just unimportant to the SWF audience. I do think their importance does actually land at like recognizable or well-known. So we're still just simmering. The next angle features my franchise wrestler. Let's see if he can get the crowd hot. He doesn't get the crowd hot, but we got an okay segment rating. So, all right, we're just simmering. And what I'm a little bit concerned about is having the crowd turn on me and start to go cold. So I'm just going to return to the booking screen quickly. And it's all going to come down to this match probably. It is a squash match where Hellion is set to dominate and win. I don't think I'm going to necessarily change anything here, but instead of calm the crowd, I'm thinking that I'll change this right now to working the crowd, because I expect to still be simmering once we get to this match. So we have 2 segments to go. We're probably just going to stay at a simmering crowd throughout the rest of the show. Let's see how it actually turns out though. All right, we are disinterested, and that is trouble. Lots of problems here. Okay, so Hellion and Ed James have poor in-ring chemistry. They don't have investment in the workers, sure. The match brought the crowd down. Okay, so we're disinterested. I don't think this angle is going to lift the crowd, so I actually think what I want to do is change this from work the crowd to lift the crowd. Yeah, let's go ahead and change this match aim and see if they're able to actually accomplish that goal. Now, all we can do is see how this particular angle works out. We're still disinterested, so the lift the crowd aim is hopefully going to work out here. We got a pretty good rating despite the crowd heat. It really has to do with just using a match aim to boost things up. Otherwise, we're just never going to come back from this, I think. So let's go ahead to the next segment and see if that works out. All right, the crowd is warming up. It was a terrible match, abysmal match, technically, according to the description here. But, you know, they're not invested in these workers. The thing is, having them warm up again is honestly like the best case scenario for this particular situation. So using that match aim certainly saved the crowd heat. And then also the rating is what it is. It has a lot to do with my audience not knowing who these workers are. But what did happen was the purpose of the match was fulfilled. So now we have an angle. We're going to go ahead and check that out. Hopefully we don't lose the crowd again immediately. And all right, we're still simmering. We're still simmering. I like that. The segment rating, okay, not a problem there. We did advance the storyline that we wanted to advance, and it looks like everyone did a pretty good job just considering each part's overall rating. We're going to just go right into the next segment, which is a match with Angry Gilmore. Oi, Brian Jewett and Angry Gilmore don't seem to click. All right, now I know that. But at least the crowd is still simmering. And again, we got over 50 in the rating, so that's cool. No worries. We're going to go ahead and get right into the next segment, which is the main event and essentially the end of the show. All right. So we didn't need to increase the crowd heat. We advanced our storyline, which is cool. And we got a pretty good rating for the main event. So no complaints here. Solid overall show, I believe. Let's finish the show and see what the overall rating is. And 56. Okay, Frosure was used too much. Warwick Good was used too much. I did have them in 3 segments to open the show. That's okay. I'm not too worried about that. We had a wide selection of angles, so that helped. But yeah, 56. Not mad about it. Let's go ahead and finish the show. And now let's see if we have more locker room incidents. We do not. That means it's time to book our third and final show of this taping. One thing I wanted to do for the tag match is add the tag teams that all 4 of these workers are on. So the LA Stars in RIPW are a tag team. They are also a tag team from their previous company, NYCW, and Texan Justice, who are RIPW tag team champions at this current moment. Now they're ready to book. In this tag team match, Joy Ryder in RIPW is a manager for Samson Sharp. So where is he? There we go. I'm just going to make sure that she is also managing him here. That way we see if that chemistry is working out well. And I mean, because Haas Hanley is also part of the tag team, I'm just going to go ahead and have her manage him on this show as well. That way we just get 2 potential managerial chemistry tests out of the way. Okay, we have all of our matches booked for this third and final show of this pre-taping. Now, we're going to be a little creative with the match aims here. I'm going to start off with 2 RIPW workers. This is the USA champion, I think that's what it's called. But both of these workers are in RIPW, so I'm going to have them start the show off with Work the Crowd. Every show starts off with a simmering crowd, and Work the Crowd is a good match aim if you have a simmering crowd and you just want to kind of get through the first segment and into the next one. Then we're going to have an in-ring promo. Comic relief is the role here for Gary the Entertainer. He is hopefully going to do a good job of being funny and getting the audience warmed up for his match with John Greed. Regular match aim here, and it's really the angle that I'm hoping, heats things up. Scythe, who is a major star, is part of this angle, so I'm just hoping that his popularity kind of carries not just a decent rating, but also gets the crowd a little bit hotter for this next match. Now, if we have a hot crowd, I'm actually going to keep the women's match a regular match aim. Most likely, the crowd is going to level off or really just like get lower than the hot crowd heat and will be simmering here, and then I can work the crowd again. If we're only simmering for this match, then I'm just going to work the crowd for both of these matches. And then we have an angle with Valiant featuring Remo. That should get a pretty good rating and hopefully gets the crowd to a hot level for the Sammy Smoke Kip Keenan main event, which is just a regular match aim, and just kind of closes out this third show that we're taping here. So let's go ahead and just start the show and see how the first match goes with the Work the Crowd match aim. And we have a simmering crowd, right? That's good. We did work the crowd and keep this crowd heat at simmering. The rating isn't very good, but that's not surprising based on the low enthusiasm that the crowd has for these particular workers. It's fine. Neither did a particularly good job in the ring, but we're just going to move on to the next segment and see how Gary the Entertainer does in his angle. Ooh, we have a hot crowd, so this is interesting. I mean, we're on track for where we want to be, but we're hot and rising. Gary the Entertainer, he pulled a decent rating, but he's gotten really high ratings before just doing his own promos. But yeah, that hasn't happened all that recently, so it's fine. Let's go ahead and hit next segment. And the crowd is still hot. Scythe actually was at ringside, so I'm sure he influenced this rating as well. But if we go hotter than hot, like very hot, then I'm going to have to calm the crowd. But right now we're in a good place. Let's see how the next angle goes. And yes, we're white hot. Okay, so we definitely have to, you know what? Maybe we don't have to calm the crowd, right? Let's do a little bit of an experiment here. I don't know if this is the right thing to do, but the show is only an hour long. I don't really care for getting the crowd to another very hot or white hot level. It doesn't really matter to me, to be honest. So needless to say, this was good enough for our needs here, right? Let's return to the booking screen, and now we have a white hot crowd for our women's match. Let's see how this does in front of a white hot crowd. I just want to double check. We are at a regular match aim, and we are going to potentially change this tag team match from regular to something like Work the Crowd. We go all the way down to simmering with this women's matchup, but let's see how it does in front of a white hot crowd. Ooh, terrible. All right. So simmering down tells me that we're at simmering, right? We went from white hot to simmering. The match brought the crowd down. So look, I guess like it might have been better if it was intentional and my match aim was calm the crowd, but it doesn't really matter to me. We did what we needed to do. Well, let's be honest, the wrestling was decent. I mean, it was about the head terrible wrestling, but for the performers, I think it was okay. So let's go to return to booking screen. Our crowd heat is at simmering, so we are going to work the crowd instead of having a regular match aim, because that'll keep the crowd at simmering, I believe, and will prevent us from the crowd turning against us, right? So let's continue the show. And yes, we are still at simmering, so the crowd is where it needs to be. Joy Ryder did a good job working ringside. She was the manager for both members of the Texan Justice tag team. The wrestling wasn't great, an abysmal match, and LA Star was off his game. but he didn't have the worst wrestling rating of all the workers in this match. Commentary actually gave a boost to the match. It was that bad, but that's okay. Like I said, the goal here was to maintain our simmering crowd heat, and let's go to the next segment and see how our angle does. Ooh, we have a hot crowd. Oh, I thought Valiant did well improvising. I know I had him unscripted, and I think he likes to not work with the script, but I don't know. We got the deserved better commentary comment here, and that's expected, I guess, especially when we have workers of this caliber in an angle. But we got a good rating for the segment. So since we're hot, I don't think these workers are particularly good at any like match aim that would benefit from a hot crowd. So I'm just going to go and hit next segment and, hope the hot crowd helps the rating overall for a regular match. And I guess it really didn't. But you know what? This was the last segment of our 3-show taping, and we ended with a hot crowd. I think that means we did a pretty good job overall of booking all of these shows throughout the night. Now it's time to finish the show and just wrap things up for the evening. Let's go ahead and finish. And there you go. We got a 56. I feel like that's on par with what we've been getting for the other tapings. That's going to wrap things up here. I think, this is pretty solid. And we want to finish up the financial report. Now, I don't think I made money. Yeah, we actually lost quite a bit of money on this show. So financially speaking, the B show might not be a great idea. So yeah, I'm not really sure a way to get around with losing all this money. It really comes down to how much it costs to pay everyone, run the show, and the limited ticket sales that I end up having. But again, running this all in one night and getting 3 shows out of it is going to be cheaper than doing this 3 separate nights and losing this much money each of those nights, right? So that's the benefit of taping multiple shows in one night, and that's why I did it this way. The company popularity isn't really a factor when we're running a B show, so we skip that, and the post show is complete. Now, to wrap things up, we see all 3 of our tapings here. We started with a 64 rated show, a 56 rated show, and then a 56 rated show. That's pretty consistent, I'd say. RIPW also held their version of Uprising, and that's not a bad thing. They had a pretty good show, and it looks like some people who don't normally get time on this show got some time because I took, all the title holders and whatnot. And it looks like 36 is a pretty good rating for what they typically do for their TV shows and events. So I really don't think holding the show on the same night affected them too much. So I might just leave the taping on Wednesday, but it would make sense to tape on a Friday that we're not having an event for RIPW. And then one thing I'm going to need to modify going forward is holding the next episode on Saturday, because I'm also going to use this B show as my event pre-show and basically put matches on for anybody who's not going to be on the pay-per-view on the main roster. I'll sort that out in another episode, I think. But that does it for this special episode where we looked at a specific way to book your B show in order to bring in and introduce some of the child company talent that you have. It's really just to get the audience a taste of where I want this product to go in the near future. So thank you for watching, and if you watched the video, give me a like. If you liked the video, please subscribe. And if you want to see more, click the notification bell. That way you know the next time it's on.